so much for coming out. I want to thank Fearless Leaders, my volunteers, and Edward and Logan over there taking their photos for this fantastic spot. So with that being said, I'll get Edward to come down if you want to give a little bit of a word about this fantastic location. Here, Logan.
Hi, Logan. So my name is Edward. I'm one of the co-founders of Verkspace, the co-working space you're in. This is Logan, my co-founder. Hello. And I'm going to let Logan take it away for some words on co-working.
So some people we get coming in here, they're kind of like, what is co-working? You know, it's just a really cool office space. It's that, but it's also community. A lot of our staff will take the time to help plan different events, but also work on developing different perks and memberships, allowing you to sort of take advantage of the power and the numbers of people that are here. And some of those are, for example, with Zipcar, we've got some discounted rates for daytime members so they can get around the city. We've also got some different perks at different restaurants in the neighborhood through Ritual and a few other different things that are coming up in the next few months. And then also one of the things we start doing is working with other co-working spaces around Canada. So say you're in Vancouver, any of our members can drop in at our partner space there and they can have so many hours per week while they're there. So just different little things like that. But there's also different socials and pizza parties and all those little things, so you get to meet some different people all the time.
It's a great way to meet new people, actually, make connections, and you just never know who will come through the doors, actually, which is kind of been the interesting part of the business. We do have a giveaway for today, so at the end of today's event, so if you put your business card in the bowl there, we're going to give away 1 free month of daytime pass for Verkspace. So make sure you put your card in there, and I'll drop that later. And I think you've covered everything.
Fantastic. And guys, you can't say enough about co-working. This place is gorgeous. These people are phenomenal. Edward and Logan have a lot of contacts if you guys are planning other events as well, or just basically want to use the space. Definitely talk to them. They can give you a lot of advice and help you out for your events. And with that, I also want to thank Nika. With Nika, photographer, who just calls Nika, I was told. So she's fantastic. She's been helping us out for a little while. Now, to that, I definitely want to we're going to do things a little bit different since we have a lot more people that want to participate and talk. So we're bringing Meg right now. She'll talk a little bit more about Liberty Village, a fantastic location as well, or Liberty Village BIA, and really what the advantage is of a BIA.
Thanks. I'm Meg. I've been to a few of these startup tech meetups, and they're great. They're really, really great.
Okay.
I've been with the Liberty Village BIA for about a year and a half now, and prior to working at the Liberty Village BIA, I had no idea what it was. Put your hand up if anyone knows what a BIA is. Has ever heard of it?
Well, there's a few.
Okay, so a few people. Okay, that's good. There's 82 BIAs in the city of Toronto, and I really encourage everyone to tap into them. BIAs can almost be like an extra resource for everyone. We are funded through a levy that's placed on property owners' property tax. So if you're in a designated area, you're an automatic member. So you may not even know that you have this resource, but you're here. We're here to help. We've got a few Liberty Village businesses here today who can kind of just attest to the community and of Liberty Village and the benefits of being involved with the BIA. Our mandate is to promote economic development to the area. The Liberty Village BIA is heading into its 16th year this year. So the very first BIA and the model of it was formed here in Toronto, Bloor West Village, I believe, back in the don't quote me on the year, but 1970 something, by Alex Ling. Who's still, 1974. Thank you, Oliver. They've been around for a while, and this model is actually used worldwide. So there's BIAs in Europe, in the States. They kind of take on a different name. They're called BIDs, Business Improvement Districts in the US, but again, they're just a really great resource for networking, marketing, and they just really want to see a better space for the community. So for Liberty Village specifically, we're looking to lobby for a new road. Our area has seen such a vast growth period in the past 5 or 6 years, so we need more ins and outs, so the next thing is a new road. And if you ever have any questions, whether it be events, knowing who to contact at the city, connecting with other businesses, saying, hey, my business is X, I want to connect with other people that do business in the same industry, can you help? And so I would really encourage everyone to tap into it. One key tip for startups To become a member business, I would really encourage everyone to find a co-working space such as this, a Regis building, the fueling station, which is located in Liberty, something of that effect, and buy yourself a monthly mailing address. By having that monthly mailing address, that will allow you to become a member business of a BIA, because you will be associated with a commercial property within that BIA. So at Regis, that's $100 a month will really help legitimize your startup. I'm not sure what the cost is here, but that would be one key tip.
How much is it?
It's 95.
So,
Yeah, cheaper.
I would really, really encourage everyone to do that if you haven't already done so, if you don't have a permanent office space. I just think trying to tell people to meet in your mother's basement is probably not the most professional. So,
It's good for Doug and Bob. But
does anyone have any questions about BIAs or how to connect or?
Well, once, twice. If not, we can definitely connect later on. But like I said, every startup needs to take advantage of some of the services that are made directly available to them, because, I mean, when you're first starting off, you got all these crazy ideas. You just need some kind of help or some kind of direction. That's one fantastic way of getting some help. The other one is, like I mentioned before, being part of some kind of a co-working space where you actually have, like-minded individuals that you can talk to, or people that fund it. Like I said, that's one of the reasons I really like Edward and Logan. If you have any questions with what's even happening in the area, to make connections. Meg, with what's happening in Liberty Village, my God, it's phenomenal. She'll bring you in, and instantly you get your meetings, you get people all lined up that you can talk to. So with that being said, thank you so much, Meg. And I'll bring in our first speaker. It'll be Chris.
Hi everybody, I'm Chris, and I own a company called The Post Office. Actually, I own a few companies now, but it started with owning The Post Office. And The Post Office is an audio production house and recording studio with a big live room, essentially. But out of there, we do a lot of TV shows and TV commercials and video games and virtual reality experiences and all those kinds of things. But through there, I need a lot of creative resources, and through the creative resources, it kind of enabled me to build a community out of that. And then through the community it's kind of forced me into this perpetual, constant startup mode where I keep on finding new opportunities in the business model that I have that I can expand upon, or new opportunities where I may be outsourcing for something all the time, and so I find somebody else in the community who's doing something similar to that. And so I've set up a lot of strategic alignments or sub-companies that break out of my company, such as like music sync licensing companies and voiceover talent agencies. And we do a lot of development now for record labels, so we develop artists, and that led me into creating a development team. So now I manage and develop a number of artists, and then through that, now we've had success with some of the publicist side of it. So now we have all these relationships with Vice and everything like that. So now we're creating a distribution and publishing company that has a record label attached into it. So it just keeps, it's constantly this thing that,
Way to go, Chris!
that ever expands. But
Yeah.
it's constantly like, I never feel like I'm ever settled or set up to a certain extent. I constantly just feel like as soon as I have one thing set up, all I ever kind of envision is, okay, well now there's an opportunity for this, or now that I have this, how do I leverage that into something else? So I don't know if anybody has any questions about anything, or what all of you guys are doing, or if there's any, I don't know what stage you're at in things. But the one thing that I have to say is that you just constantly have to continue to think of that. Once you get in this game of a startup, it never really stops. And even when you're functioning and you've got certain measures of control in place at that point and stuff like that, like there's always opportunity for somebody to come and be more innovative than you, or for a market to shift, or for something like the audio business itself was like this tailored off, kind of trickling out business where a lot of companies were having a hard time making a living in it. But we found a way through our cultural innovations and our taps through social media and everything that we developed a community. So we started garnering all the brands and stuff that we wanted. And even when that started to get, like, the budgets are shrinking with all the ad work and stuff we're doing for the Raptors and Vice and all this stuff, all the budgets are always like shrinking. But it kind of launched us into, okay, well, what's the next phase of audio? And so we started dabbling into virtual reality about 3.5 years ago. And now that's like almost like 90% of our 9 to 5 workflow is like virtual reality experiences and all the binaural and ambisonic recording and 360 mixing for all that kind of stuff. And that's now, because we have a specialty, now we've been able to penetrate back into a whole bunch of brands that we weren't able to get in touch with before because we didn't have anything special about us. Now it's like when I started this, I had no idea I'd have like a virtual reality development company, but that's where I've ended up.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are open up to opportunities. The whole thing as a startup, you think it's
Yeah.
going to go into one, you then either pivot or you end up, you stay the course, but then you see opportunities and you go and flow with the
Yeah, you
opportunities.
just have to be aware of your surroundings and aware of what's happening in your environment,
Yeah.
and you just have to keep that mindset of evolution all the time. That's like the key, is just never look at anything as an end, just look at it as another hurdle and another opportunity to innovate and to strategize, and look in your community and look at your partners and look at your friends and look at associates and find commonalities. When you first start, you have this nature to want to protect everything you have, and it's very isolating sometimes. And I made that mistake a few times, like not allowing people to help me where I could have used the help because I wanted like all this direct ownership of everything I had. And now I've found like the more I just leverage what I have and allow other people the legs to get something out of me, the more I get out of them. And it's this perpetual thing where now I have fingers in all kinds of different companies and all these different people who are working really hard with this common goal. So it's just growing everything that I have. And so that connectivity is crucial to like what I've developed. So pay attention to who's around you and what they're doing.
Relationships.
Yeah.
I'll leave it on that one there. So thank you so much, Chris, for
Thanks,
talking a
guys.
little bit more about the post office. And talking about creativity, I'll bring in our gentleman right over here from PAX.
So my name's Dave. I'm from PAX Culture Studios. So we're an innovation consultancy. We operate out of CSI, Spadina. And we also do software development. So we work with a lot of startups. We work with other agencies in the company, in the city, when they hit peak overflow, or if they have any issues that they're just hitting their head up against a brick wall, can't solve any problems, we'll take on a lot of their work. We focus on machine learning as a specialty. Our founder, my friend Justin, worked as a software developer for the last 15 years, but he also studied robotics, AI, teaches and publishes through U of T, and we really are blown away by the talent in Toronto and the way in which machine learning has, become attached to Canada, Montreal, and Toronto specifically. So it's really inspiring, it's really encouraging, and a lot of ways in which startup companies and different agencies can implement machine learning into their products, into their projects to make them competitive on a global market is actually incredible. So we have the godfather of deep learning here in Toronto, teaching and working for Google, so we're really just looking to help companies solve problems or innovate and apply machine learning technologies and complex algorithms so that, again, they can be more competitive on a global market. So we're always open to talking to new companies and just sitting around and having a cool chat and brainstorming around.
Yeah, more than anything else, if you guys have any help or you guys have any questions when it comes to deep learning, or just anything when it comes down to general, build outs, or you mentioned before, even mapping out your vision.
Yeah,
that's something you guys can sit down and start doing the roadmap as well early on. So with that being said, if there's anything that deals with deep learning, creativity, road mapping.
A lot of times, you have an idea, it could be daunting because you look at the team that's required. If you have 5 people on an agile team, you need a senior developer. In some cases, you might want a data scientist if you want to implement these machine learning techniques. There's lots of ways around that. You could go overseas, you could implement your own personal team. But in a lot of cases, what we'll do is we'll do a blueprint document or something whereby we sort of map out the whole process for you, give you a good idea of what you're up against and what you can look to expect. But
that's fantastic. It's a personal experience is what we're looking for. With that, we're also going to bring in, I think, Chris. Bring you first. You can talk a little bit more about what you do for startups.
I'm a recent startup in Toronto, but I have been operating for a couple of years. Not exactly the sexiest business, but I'm a chartered accountant, so I deal a lot with startups and tax. I don't want to waste your time talking about my business, but there are a few things I wanted to let you guys know that I think is important when I deal with my startups. The big one, which is kind of a self-promotion, is scientific research and exploration development credits. Huge for startups, ton of money basically for free. It's just, you have to be incorporated. So if you ever get to that step, you're incorporating, you have an idea, you're developing it, you definitely want to look at Shred. You'll get up to 60% of the cost you put into your product back from the government. It's kind of the innovation credit. In not tax-related topics, I would say that I can't kind of help enough that when I got a co-working space, it really helped with my SEO. I mean, I really think that the most important thing to do is have a mailing address. Like for me, what I did is I looked up areas close to me where there wasn't a lot of competitive accountants, and Liberty Village has the saddest accountants when it comes to SEO. And so within a month, I was the top search result because it's a bit of an aging industry, so people don't care about the internet. And so I got a mailing address, registered with Google, which you're not technically supposed to do that with the mailing address, and now that I'm at the top, I'm getting a ton of natural traffic. Can't recommend it enough. The other thing I would say is that BIAs and networking, when you're in a co-working space and you get to meet people, I would say I've only paid for like a couple $100 in advertising, and almost all my business is being from meeting people in co-working spaces and natural SEO. And so definitely the BAA is awesome. Meg is actually way better than all the BAAs here in
I didn't
Toronto.
pay him to say that.
And it seems like I'm selling a bit too much, but she definitely has done like a ton for my business, and I can't appreciate the BIA enough. I've done a ton of leads lately because of the resources like the volunteer groups, the Facebook groups, kind of ways to reach out to the client base. The BIA will know best. So if you have any tax questions, definitely feel free to approach me after this, because nobody likes to talk about that in front of other people.
Great timing. And for the last person we're coming up, we'll bring Kevin.
Hi guys, I'm Tammy, and my background is in graphic design. So I, maybe like most people now, sort of dabble in a few different things. So I've been doing my own graphic design for about 10 years now, and then kind of in between was running a fashion brand for 5 years, and then recently passed that off to then focus on a startup. So I'm also part of that process of, I used to do like work for startups, and now I'm trying to do the startup thing myself. But my startup's called Partial, and the whole idea with that was bringing local art by artists in Toronto into homes and businesses and stagings and all that sort of stuff. Because I kind of saw, like, I was looking at some of my friends who were starting to get to that point where they care about their space. Like, people care about food, and we care about the clothes we wear, and we care about the people we spend time with. But I think with art, it's kind of been interesting where it's either like IKEA art or HomeSense art, or like strolling into a gallery and dropping $3,000, which maybe not everyone's ready for that. So and on the flip side, I guess like supply and demand. There are so many amazing artists in the city that have just artwork sitting in their studio, and they don't necessarily have the know-how or the opportunities to move it around and all that sort of thing. So so I've been chipping away at that. So I'm kind of more like a startup who's trying to figure it out. But I will just build off what Eric was talking about. Like Meg and the BIA has been super helpful, and maybe what Chris was saying as well, like connecting with people is so great. Like right now my business is just myself and my co-founder, but then I haven't really hesitated. Like anytime someone maybe has a bit of advice to give, I just like latch on and just absorb it, because I think you'd be surprised like how many people are really willing to give advice and to give help versus like staying in your room by yourself and trying to figure it out yourself. But
that's the beauty of a co-working space as well. The fact that you're able to communicate with people, meet some phenomenal people that you didn't normally get a chance through the BIAs, through co-working spaces, just be in a space where you can actually start making relationships, the most important thing.
And I think co-working spaces or just communities, that's sort of where people are of the same like-mindedness or mindset, or who are interested in the same things, will naturally congregate in co-working spaces and that sort of a thing. So connections.
Perfect. So startups to give artwork to startups. Well, with that being said, we're going to bring in Steve from a fantastic company. I know you have a lot to talk about with Shoebox.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, really excited. I know you had to travel so far today.
Yeah, all the way, the elevator from the first floor. Yeah.
So tell us, Steve, tell me a little bit more about Shoebox and a little bit about yourself. So maybe a little bit more about your background.
Sounds good. I'll start with the company. So Shoebox is a photo collection app, and we've designed, we took it from a different angle as every other big photo collection company, and basically have the thesis that the biggest problem with photo collections are not that they're not organized or stored or some basic commodity thing like that, but that you take more and more photos every year, and you take them because you want to remember these moments, and the people you're with, and all these things you're doing, and then you never come back and see them again. So you just don't wake up in the morning and say, I really want to see that hike I took in Seattle 8 years ago. So Shoebox is an app that actually helps you to relive and enjoy your memories, along with all the commodity stuff, like keeping it in limited free photo storage and stuff like that. So we're up to just about 2 million users, over 4 billion photos in our cloud.
Now that's a big accomplishment. So you have your user base, you have everything else, and you're growing.
And we're growing completely organically, and we hit profitability earlier this year. So
fantastic.
We took some VC money, but we can survive on our own and grow, and it's completely organic, which is nice.
It's nice when you're starting to see the black again.
It's a nice relief for anyone who has a startup.
So with this Shoebox app and the phenomenal things that it does for the fact that it makes you remember some of the photos. I think that's one of the things being a customer trying it out for yourself is the fact that, again, instead of just being like a Dropbox where it's there, you forget about it, it's all archived, it's something that pops up time again and goes, oh my God, I remember this date, and it brings things time and time again.
Exactly, and that's kind of that was our key discovery, and it also ended up being driving our growth. So there's a direct correlation to how fast we're growing to how much time people are spending in an app.
Oh, cool.
So if you load all your photos to Dropbox and you never look at them again, guess what? You're not constantly recommending Dropbox to your friends.
No.
If you load in the Shoebox and you're coming back a few times a week or even daily, you're either going to find a photo that you just got to share with that one friend, and that's driving growth back to us, or you love it enough that you start telling people about it.
So Steve, what was the catalyst that actually said, you know what, I want to create this app? There's a need for it, I have to have it. What was that catalyst? What made you do that?
I always wanted to start a company. I was like president of the Entrepreneurs Association in university, super nerdy.
Nothing wrong with those. Never seen the rule of the world.
So I quit my job in Seattle at Microsoft. I moved back to Toronto. I said I'm starting a company. I told my whole family. I didn't know what it was going to be. I had about 15 ideas. I started doing month-long companies. So I shipped a Twitter client. I shipped a portfolio social network. I shipped a few quick things to get a feel for what I was good at, what I enjoyed doing, and kind of came away with knowing that I really like consumer goods and consumer-facing applications over B2B stuff, and that no matter what I was going to do, I was have to get a lot more into sales and marketing and understanding how to do distribution. And then we picked Shoebox when I was talking to my co-founder, trying to convince him to quit his day job and join me, and it was a problem we were both really passionate about. He cared about music, but we had overlapping interests that kind of aligned on Shoebox, and I'd worked in computer vision and augmented reality at Microsoft. So I kind of saw this coming wave of computers can start to understand imagery, and if you've got a few 100 million images, you might be able to do some really interesting things in 2 or 3 years. We've got a few billion now, so we can do lots of interesting things. So
the beauty of your product is, again, it's not really a digital asset management system, so it's not like you just dump a whole bunch of stuff in. It's incredible in what it does.
You dump a whole bunch of stuff in, but then magic comes out the other end. And everyone has it in their minds, I'm going to organize my photo collection this weekend. No one ever actually does it. So we had to be completely algorithmic. We've got 13 different storytelling algorithms behind it on what makes an emotionally relevant, cool story. And now we're starting to go in the machine learning.
So what, now stepping back to originally when you're still working a full-time job, what was that main catalyst saying, man, I'm working here at Microsoft, I'm making some good money, I have to do my own thing? Was it just...
I always knew I wanted to do it, and I had a general rule of thumb. You could look around Microsoft, and anyone who stays there 5 years stays forever. And I'd been there 4.5 years.
I gotta go!
Yeah, pretty much. So I quit. I moved to Toronto. I'd never lived in Toronto before. I'm from Ontario, and then just kicked it off.
And what made you what was the catalyst that made that move to say, Toronto's a good place to go, this is where I want to be, this is where I want to start?
My wife.
There's always somebody.
And we're both Canadian. We're both from Ontario, so this is home-ish.
So it was a nice coming back. And
nice coming back. Didn't know anyone, but kicked it off from there.
So on the early iterations, when you first started doing your product and started, I guess, envisioning your roadmap for Shoebox, how did you guys start thinking about, okay, here's my MVP, this is what I'm going to start off with? What was the deciding factors? Because, again, you have a really slick looking app. So how did you go from your original design, the drawings?
Our first version wasn't slick looking at all. We joined an accelerator pretty much off the bat. So I had about 3 works of dev time into a very rough app. We joined an accelerator, so we had a 3-month time frame to launch. If you want to take advantage of an accelerator, you got to kind of launch halfway through. So we put the whole thing together. We had apps 5 apps: web, Mac, Windows, iOS, Android, service, and the whole thing shipped in 6 weeks from like first line of code to
Holy smokes.
yeah. So the first version, as you can imagine, was not pretty, but it was exactly what I said. It's a minimal viable product. So we were able to leverage the accelerator, get a lot of eyes on it, get a lot of feedback from really smart people around the Toronto ecosystem community. Get just a bunch of random users from things like getting on TechCrunch, and that gave us this kind of very small but enough stream of growth to start measuring what was working, what wasn't working, and just iterating on the product. So the good news is like the very early stages, we had the feedback, everyone had this problem, and they got really excited by our pitch. And like this idea that we had, and they would jump the gun and install the app and try it out, and it was worth it, and that the pitch was resonating with people. The product had its gaps, but as soon as we had enough people coming through, we could start, okay, where are the holes in the funnel? Is it onboarding? Is it uploading? Is it getting long-term lasting users? And eventually, improve the product, just small iterations until we eventually got over it.
You're basically in that mode of constant improvement at this point. So you found out what customers really like, what they don't like, what really worked for them, and then when did this early stage of, instead of just having a Dropbox for photos, into something that starts now mentioning or making people remember some of these awesome photos they've taken?
That was, it was always part of our thesis. The first version of that we shipped was called This Day in History. And it's like, what were you doing 4 years ago today? Simple concept. And all of a sudden we just started seeing growth coming from, people would forward these emails, we'd send them to other people, and we get users coming in through that channel. And it was just like, oh, cool. People are, and their engagement metrics. So the hardest thing with any app is actually long-term lasting engagement. So you can often ship an app and there's all sorts of different stats, but look at Andrew Chen's blog post on it. But like by day 30, you're lucky if 10% of people installed it are still using it. If you have anyone using it a year later, you're miracle workers. So we had this first version had that problem. People would use it for 2 or 3 days and never come back. When we started doing the rediscovery stuff, and it kind of happened by chance, we were trying different things, but we started hitting on things that would get lasting retention, which is this big kind of holy grail of consumer apps. And we had now large percentage of people, even after a year, 2 years in, still using the app, still coming back daily, which is huge. So
well, that's one of the things I remember. We for this past year doing all these talks and seeing all these different apps and applications, and now we normally test them ahead of time, so we have at least somewhat of an idea of what we're going to be talking about. And one thing I remember seeing with yours as well that was really, really cool, especially over Christmas, is you're not thinking about it, you downloaded the app, and all of a sudden, every once in a while, it keeps on showing, oh my God, have you seen this picture? And you're like, I haven't seen this in so long, and it was awesome to see. And then you want to go back and say, let's upload more.
And I get that. And then we did a ton of work around aha analysis. So what's our aha moment? And we realized that in the first week, if we got people to look at these, look at memories of this idea of hooking people, and they have to, in that first week, tell them what your app is. And for us, everyone thought of us as Dropbox. And then we had to convince people, and the people we could show our value to. And that first week got it, and all of a sudden Shoebox became Shoebox and not Dropbox for photos, which is where we want to be.
So now you're mentioning before, okay, you had this vision, you come down here with your family, and then you're trying to get your co-founder, you're trying to rope him in. So how early on did he come in?
Rope him in, that's exactly it. I forget exactly, a few, maybe a month into development, toying around with ideas. I had like 3 projects on the go at the time, and I was trying to get him to join, and so we could focus on something. But I was accepted Accelerator. That was a forcing function for him to quit his job and move from Waterloo to Toronto. And then it just kind of kept rolling from there.
And it was one of those things where he was just a friend, or was he a contact, or something?
I've known him since high school. We went to nerd camp together in high school. We were roommates at Waterloo, went to the same program, so known him for a long time.
Okay, so now as you're building out your team, what are you doing? Because you're at a stage where you're kind of like, you're a small company that's well funded, and then from there now you're starting to build up your team. So what was like maybe talk about your first hire? How was the experience based on your first hire?
First hire was just chaos. It was a friend, and she started helping out, and then one day we realized we should start paying her. The first hire, it wasn't that thoughtful. It worked out wonderfully, and helped build the company. But it was just pure luck that we kind of stumbled into it. The big thing for us for hiring has always been trying to figure out like the culture side of things. So we came at it with the point of view of, how do we build a company that we would want to work at for the rest of our lives? And we talked a lot about all the things that annoyed us about the companies we had done previously and what we liked, and put together kind of some principles around how to build a company that could attract and retain people long term. So,
And so basically, you mentioned in culture right now, that was one of my questions, is how do you maintain, what was So you sat down ahead of time with your founder going, these are the founding principles we want to have. This is what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, exactly. So there's 4 of them. There's no deadlines, first one. The general idea that, the obvious one, deadlines stress you out. And they cause a lot of stress, and that will eventually cause burnout, and people leave. And that's the obvious one, and that's very important. So we eliminate deadlines. But the other thing about it is, as a startup, great ideas can come out of nowhere. If you've got some deadline 2 months out, and you all of a sudden have a great idea, you're going to keep working towards that deadline and put that great idea off. When you get rid of deadlines, you can always just be working on whatever the most important thing in your company is at that moment. So we start to focus on the right things. You can ship whatever the most important thing is that afternoon. You can ship it, and you just ship it whenever it's ready. So kind of continuously going. As long as the app's getting better every single day, we're making progress and we're working on the right things. So that's one. Second one is lots of collaboration but minimal meetings. Everyone just hated meetings. So we just basically got rid of them. Our most common meeting is team lunch once a week on people's calendars. The second most common is a bi-monthly board meeting recap where everyone gets to see what the board saw. And then so just getting rid of those. So the idea is we want to work together a lot, but you just grab the people you need. Grab a whiteboard. You need 2 people for 6 minutes. You have 2 people for 6 minutes. You need to grab the entire company for 8 minutes. You grab the entire company for 8 minutes. But you don't book off these 1-hour blocks where you get everyone sit down on PowerPoint and all that stuff. So no meetings, but lots of collaboration. High transparency. The idea that you have access to every piece of data in the company. So we do board meeting recaps with our team. We show them basically exactly what the board's seeing. They should be no surprises. They know way more than the board, and the board's just getting the information like a month after they already knew it because they built the thing we're talking about. And then what's the last one? Oh, I forget. It's important though. We have 4 pillars. The 4th one's awesome.
That is a secret sauce, which is just so happen I can't tell you.
Can't share.
No, but it's awesome for the fact that, again, you're trying to keep your transparencies. You're a small enough shop that is. The fact that you guys are small is you guys have that synergy right now.
That's the 4th one. A small, smart team can get more done than a big team just because you start to add all the overhead communication, everything else around it. It's exactly it. So keep it small, keep everyone in mind meld, communicate a lot during stand-up about what everyone's doing, and you get a lot more done than some big team that has, emails and specs and all that other work.
So as you start bringing on more people as well, I mean, that always brings some more stress directly as yourselves as owners. I know for most startups, the fact that they're normally on a cash crunch versus something that has a little bit more cash. But I mean, how's that process directly for you? So you don't have that same stress level of going, oh my God, now this developer's costing me $60,000 or $100,000, and the next one coming in going, oh my God, now I'm up, doubling and doubling and doubling. So what's the factor that you guys put into place saying, you know what, I've got the culture, I got the people coming in, and you slowly start bringing more people in, making sure they still stick to the common vision.
And that's it. It's slow, steady hiring of smart people. Like we are a relatively small company. We're 8 people, 5 full-time, 3 part-time. We're trying, if those culture values appeal to anyone, we're hiring 4 engineers. So come talk to me. There's always a plug. So definitely come talk to me if you're an engineer and looking for an interesting opportunity. But just slowly adding people and the culture. Your culture is there every day. Like you can write it down, but no one's going to read the doc. They're going to see it every day and how you behave and how you communicate and how you act. Yeah, exactly. So as long as you don't hire 12 people and have them start and overwhelm it, and it might overrun it gets spread throughout the company. So now as you're building your product, you're building everything else right now, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen early on that you wish you might have done stuff a little bit differently, like early on within the first year? First year, that one's easy. So the way Shoebox initially grew, we had a small beta user base, a few hundred users. We launched and we got tech crunched, and that brought in 1,000 users.
Wow.
Yeah, which is 1,000 users, crazy. The servers are on fire. We did that a few minutes now. And then 1 week later we had 13 million photos, which is crazy. So TechCrunch wrote us about it again, and then we had more users, and then 2 weeks later we had a bunch more photos. So TechCrunch wrote us about a 3rd time. Literally, we had a TechCrunch fueled growth engine. No, it's not. Well, it was good until it stopped because they're not going to end up. They don't write about you every single week until the end of time. So this hard realization of like, we had enough people using it. We had enough feedback. The product was hitting a need. It was doing the right things. But the idea that if you build it, they will come is kind of a big lie. would be the biggest like realization in the first week. You're building a growth engine as much as you're building a product. There's tons and tons of products out there that are just brilliant that you never heard of because the founders never found a way of getting them into your hands. So we went through a few iterations, but the realization that we should be building a growth engine as much as we're building product or a company was big, and we spent a lot of time on that.
What was your catalyst that made you basically break through the noise between all the other products out there?
We did two big waves. First, we actually just did pure unit economics, paid acquisition. So we advertised, we brought in users, $1 in, $1.50 out. Okay, we've got a business, and it's nice. Eventually, as the organic, the work that got users rediscovering their photos, sharing them, and bringing in organic users work. So there's $0 in and $1 out. It's even better. So we got that working, and it completely superseded the paid acquisition model.
Okay.
So it kind of went in waves, but we spent a lot of time on both of those, on how to get them working and how to get a machine that just cranks on its own.
Okay. Now, through this whole process of knowing what works, what doesn't work, what was your... I guess you mentioned before how you broke through some of the noise again, but what was your differentiator between you and all the other photo apps? Because again, there's a lot of stuff out there. This is a business. You have down in your gut. There's something here.
Yeah.
How what was your thing saying we're gonna be different because we're doing this?
Yeah. And the weird thing is we never. So I can sit and talk about it here to you guys about like why we're different, this rediscovery angle aspect of that. We never found a way of pitching that to users. Like you read our app store description, it'll say unlimited free photo backup, great photo collection, and doesn't actually mention that stuff. We never found a way of explaining that to users, but somehow users have found a way of telling their friends about it. So it's weird because the differentiation is really the lasting engagement and retention. That's the only metric we focus on when we're doing product development. So are people coming back more frequently? Are they spending more time in the app? And are they getting more likely to have that 6-month or 1-year retention? So that's all we focus on, and it keeps getting better, and with that our growth goes up.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. That was one big thing when I heard about your app. I mean, even through Edward was like, okay, there's another photo app. I wasn't really sure, but then my vision when I see that is memories. I mean, that's really what it brings back. It brings back tons of memories when you see these photos, and the fact that it's constantly emailing you these things.
And it's a slow grind, but now you search photos in the App Store, we're number 2. So you eventually build your way up there slowly. You get there, and just keep improving the product. We went from a 3-star app to a 4.5-star app. So 5 stars on a good day, depending on how users are feeling about a specific release.
So what's on the horizon right now with Shoebox? I mean, what do you see big picture within the next few years?
Biggest thing, so sticking with that theme of getting people to enjoy their photos and enjoy their memories. My background is computer vision. I would always pitch we're going to use computer vision to make this work. We're at a place where we're finally building a machine learning team that's going to go. The idea is we've done everything we can think of. We've got 13 or something storytelling algorithms that are using all classical algorithms, so geo and clustering and all these different approaches to telling stories with your memories. And every time we get better and better, our engagement, our retention, our growth all go up. In parallel, the next step is looking at the photos and starting to get computers to actually recognize what makes an emotionally important photo. Because some photos you take are a receipt you want to file for expenses later and never care to see again. Some photos are your daughter's first steps, and I've got a thesis that sunsets suck. We all take these sunset photos every single year over and over again. If I showed them all to you, you wouldn't be able to tell me where they were or when they were, and that. So there's something about certain photos that make them really important to come back to. It's people, it's places, they trigger memories.
It's emotional connection.
Yeah, emotional connection, and we're going to teach computers to basically recognize those things and help resurface the right memories and get.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so that's most of the focus of the company. That content creation, so taking all your memories and doing cool, creating dynamic videos on the fly and stuff like that. So really, anything that helps you enjoy your memories more and actually gets you coming back. That's what we do.
Since StartupTech is really collaborative, and we try to help all the other startups as well, as a founder yourself, what would be, I guess, one of the best pieces of advice you could give an early stage founder on what to do or how to maintain their sanity within running their company? Because everyone's going bananas. They're not sure. You're stressed out to the max. What would that piece of advice be?
I thought about this. You did say the question beforehand. 2 things. First, there's some people, I meet tons and tons of founders who haven't quit their day job yet. First thing, quit your day job. Doesn't matter if you don't have your idea sorted out. The best way to get started is just to quit and go. There's not a company until there's someone working on it full time, and if you're the founder, that should be you. I talk to so many people random events who are like starting a company and still have a daytime job and trying to hire someone else. Like quit your job, kick it off, then you've got a company. It'll drive the pressure, which is actually a good thing. And then second, once you do that, get in it for the long haul. I've also met a lot of people who, after 3 months are giving up and quitting, and there's no chance of success in your first 3 months. It's nil. Plan to put 5 years into it, and if you can plan for 5 years and you're excited about the prospect of working on this idea for 5 years, some people break off things that are too small, and after a year and a half are bored, or they break off, or they're just 8-9 months in, they're giving up on the idea, or just like they wanted instant overnight success. It doesn't work that way. There's even the biggest companies, if you track their history, they had 3 or 4 years at the beginning where they're just ramping up, and then they kind of find the thing and hit their stride. So emotionally prepare yourself for 5 years plus, and if it still seems like a good idea, then by all means jump in. It'll be a lot more sane, and you'll plan things also. You won't burn out. If you're planning for 5 years, you're not going to burn out in the first 6 months. Working an extra 20 hours a week isn't going to make you break you. It's more likely going to break you than make the company. So, yeah.
How important is flexibility for a founder?
You've got to be flexible. I had 4 ideas I was trying in parallel when we started Shoebox. It's everything, and at some point you need to put a flag, a vision way off in the sunset and point people in that direction. But how you get there is completely, it's mostly going to be driven by your team. So.
Well, one of the things I like when we normally have our talks, I know when I sit down and talk to a lot of founders, we talk about, I'll be really blunt, is how do we fuck up? My God, I screwed this up, I screwed that up. Yeah. Now, if you're looking back the last few years, what was the biggest thing that you've learned? This is my biggest screw up we did, and this is what we did to basically solve it and just keep on moving on, because there's always something. Either it's a funding round that you're all waiting for this funding round and it collapses, and then you kind of give up, or maybe it's all that fantastic hiring and then they all quit, or there's always something. Yeah. What was the one thing for you guys?
It's a good question. I'm trying to think of the biggest one. We spent about a year working on paid acquisition, so unit economics. You pay for advertising, you bring users in. Ideally, they pay you back in some time frame and keep paying you after that, and it all works out. We spent a lot of time getting that to work, and we underestimate, I think, the amount of effort that goes into running a unit economics-based CAC business. It worked. We got it working. It was profitable. It remains profitable, but. It was taking away from kind of our development and effort and time and focus on this thesis. Once we eventually had some time, started working on that more, we had these product breakthroughs that really started driving us. And if you want to reach, 10 million, 20 million, 200 million users, it's not going to be, ads that are going to get you there. It's going to be organic growth and with this consumer business. So we spent a lot of time on that. And once we stopped spending a lot of time on that, we had all these product breakthroughs, and I wish we just kind of slid those up and hit the organic stuff sooner. It was profitable, it worked out, it wasn't, didn't sink us or anything like that, but the biggest thing for us, we've got a little bit sidetracked from, spending every day with crazy focus on this one thesis, and we're back to that, and it's a good thing.
Okay. Yeah. Now, of all the things that's being done with startups and being with, founders running their own businesses, I guess I'll end it with this, is what's the best thing that you think you've done as a founder that's the most enjoyable for you right now with Shoebox?
The best thing, I would say it's the culture of the company we've built. Our retention's really long. We basically built the kind of place, we set out to build a place where I would want to spend the rest of our careers if we'd be lucky enough to be successful enough to have this go for the rest of our careers. And it's, a few years in, it's the best job I've had. So I look forward to work every day. I look forward to the challenges we face. There's always crazy stuff when you're a startup founder. But just focusing on building the kind of company that you want to come into every day. And then ideally other people join you and they like it and it all perpetuates. It's been really nice because I honestly couldn't picture going to any other company. So in some way I'm broken to the world, but really enjoying what we've built and what we have going right now.
Well, I was going to ask a few more questions, or let the company or let everyone else talk. But one question I do want to ask you is talking about the funding cycles. Because again, you got funded early on. What was the biggest thing you learned from getting funding?
Oh, interesting.
Good, bad, or the other?
This is counterintuitive, but VCs are actually smart. I didn't realize this. I thought they were all jerks, and they're pattern matching to a lot of things they see, and when they see a SaaS business and they say this isn't going to work because of X, there might be some high level thing that doesn't quite make sense, but seen hundreds and hundreds of companies, I started to pattern match. And then, I read a great blog post the other day that I wish I'd read 4 years ago around SaaS businesses, but basically saying, we only invest in companies that have either negative churn or organic loops, because those are the only ones that can be really big over time. And yeah, exactly. And we finally got those working, actually, but they have this really deep understanding of a lot of areas of the business, which might not be your background. I'm an engineer by training. I work at a lot of product stuff. I'm not, a SaaS expert.
Yeah.
So
it's also not vested. I mean, you guys are all so invested in your product.
Yeah, exactly.
You have your blinders on that you just know this is going to be the best.
Yeah.
And you don't.
And you get some awful advice. So by no means take any advice you get from investors. But if they're saying, something about your CAC and your ratios, and they're probably right. If they're saying your payback's too long, your payback's too long. Most likely, if they're a halfway decent SaaS investor. So basically, learning when to trust investors and I believe you on unit economics. I believe you on these kind of things, and when to say no, I'm the product guy. I'm gonna run this style of business. So figuring out what your strengths are and learning to actually work with and kind of trust investors on what their strengths are and what they've seen before. So
okay, fantastic. So with that being said, definitely open it up directly to the floor so anybody can ask any questions, because this is a great opportunity for someone who's built some phenomenal organic growth. So we'll start off.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Bibu. Obviously, you're a founder of Shoebox, and it is kind of your baby. I guess you've been putting in lots of hours and sweat into it. I guess my question is just as a founder, I would imagine that you sort of want to be involved with almost all areas of the business, as far as decisions that you may have to make, the approach that you take towards dealing with different issues. But just at what point do you say okay, I don't really know what to do with this. I need to sort of trust someone to kind of bring them in and basically, relinquish some aspect of control to get someone involved to help them out.
Yeah, relinquishing control is hard. Most founders are pretty A-type and want to have their hands in everything. What I've learned is try to basically hire people with more experience or better at you in specific areas, which usually means doing them yourself for a while, failing horribly, but learning enough to recognize talent. So I did our accounting for the first year. It's awful, and we finally hired someone, brought them in to fix it. It was absolute garbage heap, but I learned enough in that first year to talk with them, understand, and assess their quality of work, and work with them and get a lot for that. So try it yourself at first. Do every aspect of the business. You're constantly learning new things. I was our designer, awful at that. Hired someone much better. I've done an awful job at every single part of this company for a little while, and then to learn enough about it to recognize talent and hire someone who's better. And then by that time, you're actually really happy to, oh, this is fantastic. You're amazing at this. I can't wait to have you take over design, because I am this logo is horrible. Our initial name was My Shoebox too. Horrible name. So bringing the right people, you'll if you've done the job for a bit and failed at it, it's a lot easier to find the right people, understand what it takes, what it means to do that role really well, and then you're also more excited to bring in the right person once you find them. So,
okay, perfect. There we go.
Like Brian, I'm in the printing business in Liberty Village, and so any analog extensions?
We've been playing with a bit. You can now print phone cases, photos, magnets, books from within the app. We have a printing partner. We see a little bit of traffic through that sort of stuff. Some people absolutely love it, but it's a relatively small percentage. That being said, there are some apps doing wonderful, huge things in that space, like Shutterfly and a bunch of others. So it's not going away, but it's digital photography is changing a lot. So
Well, what about partnering with a Vistaprint or somebody like that's got the critical mass? So you're combining.
And that's it. And it's just the more we test our UX, the more the slightest difference to the feed UX will make people spend twice as long in the app. Anything that involves hitting a button, entering a credit card, and waiting 10 days is a pretty big disruption to the flow of the app. So printing, we've been playing with it. It makes us a bit of money. It's not, doesn't look like it's going to be our core business anytime soon. That being said, a lot of companies, we were the first to launch unlimited free photo storage. A lot of the things are being cannibalized around photography. So printing's be one of the, at least definite revenue generating areas in photography for forever. But there's so much content being generated and storage is getting so cheap. There's other interesting things. We're playing more in the other space.
Okay. So that's cool with your product as well. I mean, you started off with a freemium model, then you also have your Pro that offers a little bit more of the services. You maybe you have an API, like you mentioned before, to integrate with other printers or
no, we partnered with one printer, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But the business model is dead simple. You know, it's free, unlimited, high resolution storage. We were the first ones to launch that. We were worried it was going to cannibalize our own business, but it actually ended up saving us because Google launched it 8 months later. So we beat them to the punch instead of them suddenly appearing and trying to cannibalize our own business. We at least disrupted ourselves.
Okay.
But the idea is build a business. For us, we need less than a 1% conversion rate for us to be profitable. So build something. And if you're in the consumer space, 2% is a wonderful conversion rate. Aim for 2%. Design it so it's profitable at 0.5% and try to grow it to millions and millions of people.
Perfect. Oh, back there.
Yeah, you touched on it earlier, but when you move from the sort of paid acquisition model to sort of the more organic growth model, you mentioned that you wished you'd done it a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, would you say there's any key, sort of signs that you should have noticed and said, now's the time to move this?
Good question. I'd say 40-50% of the company's time was doing some optimization, running some metrics around our campaigns. Like, it was consuming a lot of time. We were trying to be we were fundamentally innovation. We're doing new things, and that's what makes us interesting. And we weren't putting 85% of our time into this core thesis. That would be the big thing. So if you're spending a lot of time on something that doesn't differentiate you, like the same thing goes when pitching your company. Like, we do a lot of things that we don't talk about that were just necessary and took us a year to get there, but we try to put 85% plus of our time now into what makes us different. We weren't doing that during that period, and that's risky territory to be in. And then once we started doing that, things started going faster. So.
Perfect. Right there.
You've mentioned that one of your problems was growth generation, and I just wanted to ask, what do you plan on doing to generate more growth and raise kind of top of mind awareness of your brand?
It's that big main thesis: get people to look at their photos, and the growth naturally happens. It's literally direct correlation of minutes in app to growth. So as our experience gets better, so it's going to be telling better stories. And it's this weird thing to say telling better stories is going to make our company grow, but it's 100% what works, and we've got enough data now to actually, it took us a while to convince ourselves that it was actually making an impact, but we have years of data now, and it does. So that's the plan. So. Yeah, it's pure product development driven growth. We're in a good spot where it's organic and it's growing, and we're profitable, so we have runway to figure out the next big innovation. We've had 2 or 3 breakthroughs over the years that have been step function improvements. We're searching for the next 3x, 4x improvement in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. And right there.
You mentioned that to really get into this startup company, you had to quit your job.
Yep.
And then invest yourself fully into it, right? So as a professional who's getting into a startup company, what do you suggest to the professional? What they should be looking for?
To work at a startup company?
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy. There's tons of great companies in Toronto, Shoebox included.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Always plug shamelessly. Pull up AngelList, see what's recently funded. Great way to figure out who's hiring right now. Just check out the job boards. There's a lot of companies doing really interesting things in Toronto. Everyone's always looking for talent. It's a good time to be looking for a job. So if you're interested in it, email the CEOs, the 10 companies you find most interesting on AngelList. Go filter by Toronto. Look what's hot, look what has users. If they recently raised, I guarantee you they're hiring. A Shoebox is. And email the CEOs and say, hey, I am specifically, because that's what excites me most when I'm talking to someone. There's some people I talk with and they're just looking for their next job and they really don't care what it is. Some people are looking for, I tell them about the cultural differences between us and an Amazon or a Google, and their eyes light up and it's like, yes, I want to work at a place like that. Those are the people that get me excited. So, someone who actually will appreciate what makes a startup different, the fact that you can ship 3 times a day and that there aren't deadlines, but you'll still move fast and stuff like that. So email them if you're interested in the right thing and you align with what the culture they've set up, they'll be hiring and they'll be looking for other people. So, yeah.
Right there. Yep.
Hi, Russell. I just I have a quick question on security. I work with some startups and I'm in the security industry, and I always often find startups and anybody who has an awesome product, they just want to work on the product and develop the product.
Yeah.
I guess it's something interesting that I almost just want to table to everybody and ask you at the same time is, when does security in your startup kind of become any point of focus, for your clients, for your organization?
We've always taken security very seriously, given the size of the user base and the data we're protecting. So what have we done? My CTO has done a ton of training around it. We've done a bunch of testing around it. Most of it, we didn't have testing the very first initial version of the product. For anyone software engineers in the room just cringing, except for the security work around that. So it's hard, but you basically have to build it in every single layer. It's nothing you can add on. So we're always thinking about it. We've got monitoring set up and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's a hard question to answer without going into tons of detail around it. But yeah,
it's tough, right?
Yeah, and you're totally right. Like no one's signing up for your product because you added a security feature. But for us, at least, we realized early on that there was big trust issues, especially when you're entrusted with your photographs. So we spent a lot of time on it. And yeah.
Perfect. Anyone else have any other questions? Going once, going twice. Well, with that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming out directly. Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you for having me.
We are actually really happy. The staff at StartupTech Unleashed. You have Anis and we have Ryan over here. This is Nika. This is our first official year. As far as our first year anniversary. So with that, we have some cake in the back as well. So right after we do the draws, come on down, have a slice of cake, drink some more water, eat the rest of the pizza.